Good evening, everybody, and you'll recognise Shaun Buchanan. Shaun's it's been a long time, Shaun. How long is it since we last did a feed? It must be
about 9 months. 9 months.
Was it? Oh, was it during?
Yeah, we've spoken.
Yeah, we've been talking all the time. We've been talking all the time, but we haven't done a feed for a long time. So, Shaun, welcome back, mate. You're always welcome on the show. I've titled the show tonight "Time to Fight for the Lost Generation," and I think we're living through a time, and I want to hear what Shaun's got to say about this. I think we're living through a time where young people from whatever background, and we're talking about working class primarily young people in the UK and in Ireland, are completely lost. They've lost their identity, they've lost their sense of purpose, they've lost the family structure, the family background. And really I want to tease out from Shaun, because Shaun's got a lot of expertise in this, how we fix this lost generation. I mean, a lot of the viewers over here or in England will have seen the scenes from Belfast a few weeks ago, where we had rioting on the streets again, young kids basically going out and rioting, and there was very good political reasons. There's never an excuse for a riot, but there was real political reasons behind that. But again, what it was illustrating was there's another generation of working class kids in Belfast who are getting dragged into street violence, street disturbances, and that worries me. And I think Shaun will probably bear out that it's happening in London with the knife crime and with the gangs and with the gang culture and all that sort of thing. And it's the same thing. It's no different. We were saying that before we came on air. It's no different, the violence that's going on in Northern Ireland, to some of the gang culture, because people want to find something to belong to, and they want to find excitement, and they want to find that buzz out of life. I remember when I was a kid, growing up in Middlesbrough, we used to like going out fighting with other gangs. I mean, thank goodness there was no real knife crime or anything like that. Then it was just you'd have a punch up, you'd have a bit of a tear up, if you like, and then everything was forgotten about the next day. But everything seems to be a bit more vicious now and vengeful, and there seems to be a lot more sort of death and destruction in the wake of that gang violence. Again, thankfully, that's not happening in Northern Ireland at the minute to a great extent, but there's the potential there for that to happen. And it's really, like we've been talking about for the past few weeks, how do we put the genie back in the bottle when things like they're going to look like they're going to spin out of control? And again, there's a lot of very good political reasons for what's happening in Northern Ireland. I'm never excusing violence, but there's real political problems in Northern Ireland. But the underlying thing, I believe, is that we are looking at this lost generation right the way throughout the UK and Ireland. And over to you, Shaun. Tell us a bit about your background, where you come from, and why you're so passionate about these issues with young people and families and family breakup.
Well, I'm from South London, and to be fair, I've grown up in South London. I've never left Southwest in terms of my residency or home. So what I've seen over the years is, as yourself in Ireland, when I was younger, it was more fist fights, physical confrontation, and then it's forgotten about afterwards. But over the last, I'd say 15, 20 years, I've seen it spiral into the vengeful attacks, the areas that you can't go into because you're from a different area, especially from my background. And with the younger generation, because of the embarrassment and not wanting to be embarrassed in public, they're prepared to let things escalate and spiral. And then it becomes like a mob mentality and they don't want to attack people. So yeah, it's hard. There's with terms of solutions, it's I think a lot of it comes down to, like you said, the family home. A lot of, broken homes now, a lot more than they were previous generations. The instant success culture of social media, psychologically telling people that, basically, if you're not a millionaire by 25, you're a waste of space in life. And then that translates into, odd behavior and thinking, oh, why should I have to put up with this? Why do I have to live this kind of life? Then people have seduced them with street life, where they say, look, you can make this money without having to do a regular job. You don't have to spend 40, 50, 60 hours a week working for peanuts, for, London living wage or the national minimum wage for hours on end, when you can get that, in, say, one drop. You go out there and you dole out a little, narcotics, and they can get that kind of money without having to put in the graft. And that's what happens, especially with people that haven't been educated, haven't done well at school. They got emotional hang-ups with maybe family breakdown, or there's not enough, youth services where they can attend, to, to make no opportunity through sports, because, with that, there's only a certain amount they let through the gatekeepers. There's only a certain amount that can be a professional footballer or cricketer or tennis player. Obviously, there's barriers as well with the coaching when you're initially coming up. If you're not sponsored, a lot of working class people wouldn't be able to, say, oh, there's a few grand a year so you can get top coaching. It's things like that. There's serious barriers, and a lot of the barriers are like political gatekeepers, especially around, the local communities, local authorities. And then people get disfranchised and fall by the wayside. And that becomes then a bigger draw, because I said, look, there's people that apparently care about me, which they really don't. And I said, look, you can make this kind of money, as I said, without having to do half the graft, without having to study and educate yourself. And obviously that's a spiral and continuing ignorance.
Well, I mean, from again, just without sort of, I suppose, saying too much, but Shaun, you're a university educated guy. You grew up in a tough environment, and you survived that, and you did well in that, and you thrived in that, and you've now, you're university educated. You've got a lot of different things going on. You've got businesses going on. You're also, heavily involved in the voluntary sector. I mean, do you find that some of those, because obviously I take it people in your area, you've been there all your life, they know you, they know what you're about, they respect you. Are you able to be an influencer in that area?
To be fair, it's funny you say that. I left where I first grew up in Brixton, Stockwell Park Estate. I left that from young. My parents bought their first house 1990, like I was 9 years old. And so we moved to an area where it was, to be fair, more Caucasian people. So there was less of that kind of, they didn't want us to get into the kind of trouble that we were in before. But obviously, even when you move, there's always an element of that going on. So where I went to secondary school, there was a lot of National Front at the time. So we was fighting regularly. Asians, whites, blacks, a lot of division in that. So especially for some people that when we was at primary school, we actually got along. But when we started to become aware of, politics and socialization, the differences in ethnicity, that's what led to the friction. And then obviously the egos come out and said, oh, look, who's going to dominate? Who's going to be the big one? So that's how it came about. In terms of when I had children, I deliberately moved to Wimbledon. You see what I mean? In South London, where I know there's less of that going on. Even though my eldest is in Croydon. I moved to Wimbledon to avoid all that. But yeah, growing up, I saw those kind of behavior, fighting, carrying on. So I stayed far from it. I was more of with these. I was never like a knife or gun crime or anything like that. So.
Did you box, Shaun? Were you involved in the boxing community, or did you ever get in the boxing?
To be fair, funny enough, only a club fighter, training at a club and that. I never had any even white collar fights or anything like that. But I had a few street fights as a teenager. Yeah. To be fair, a lot of it is because in my community, I was an oddity of a nature. I was a black man that supported Chelsea, which they said, oh, how can you do that when Arsenal's got Ian Wright, Paul Davies, Mickey Thomas, David Rocastle? So that was an oddity of nature. And then I kept friends from all different ethnicities, Asian, white, black. And some of them, my hardcore black friends would say, oh, how can you do that? That's a bit, a bit odd. So I said, no, it's not. I treat people how I like to be treated. And if I get along with someone that's from a different ethnicity, they're handling me good. I don't care about where they're from. So that's where I had most of my conflict fights like that. Some people say, oh, you're a coconut, you're a sellout. And others will say, you're too radical. I said, yeah, which one is it? So to what I'm about than what other people are doing.
I think I've had the same, I've been attacked by the far left. I've been attacked by the Islamists. I've been attacked by the far right. So probably going to have Irish Republicans and probably a few Scottish people that are nationalists not really like me too much either. So I think if everybody hates you, you're probably doing something right, Shaun.
I want to say they hate me. They just found it a bit odd. But I said, look, if someone's treating you good, I said, for instance, I said, especially some of the people that they had family that went to church, said, Jesus went out, tell you about this, the parable of the Good Samaritan. So the Samaritan that saved the Jew was his half brother. But I said, culturally, they despised each other. They weren't supposed to do that, help a Samaritan. Someone's supposed to help a Jew on the road to Damascus. He's not supposed to help him. But because he saw a need, he said this, and his conscience provoked him, decided to help him. That's how I've always been. Regardless, obviously, I know I'm a black man, and obviously I have certain things in my culture, the way I eat, the way I prepare myself, the way my family is. But I said I would never leave that as a barrier to prevent other people, good people from other ethnicities, from interacting with them just because they're a different color or they have a different culture. If we got similar values around, you know, personal responsibility and taking care of family, and we get along socially, I said I don't see that as a barrier of why I wouldn't have a friend like that. And obviously, if we went out and someone attacked them, I said I would fight.
Yeah,
and that's how it has to be. That's what I found out.
I think. I mean, whenever I was when I was at school, there was we had racial tension in the school, but it was more, to be brutally honest, it was the Pakistani Muslim gangs against everybody else. That's just the way it was. I mean, I'm just speaking my own personal experience. That's what my school was like, and we realized very, very quickly that they didn't like us, and then obviously if people don't like you, you kind of get.
Yeah, you don't like them. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. But again, it's like you were saying. It kind of, when we're in primary school and stuff, it never really happened. But it just seemed to be when you got a teenager, everyone's got something to prove.
Yeah.
I suppose if it wasn't a Pakistani, and it wasn't like Pakistanis against whites, it was Pakistanis against Indians, and
I saw that as well.
Against Somalis and everybody else. So that was just the way. But now I'm not saying that's the way it was in every single town up and down the country.
Of course, it's anecdotal.
It's just my own experience, growing up in Middlesbrough. But when I joined the army, the regiment I joined, it was from West Yorkshire, and I would say there was probably about 10% of the regiment were from a West Indian background. It was a really high proportion of West Indians in the regiment, and there was never any racism or this, that, and the other in my regiment, because there was two reasons for that. One, it just wasn't what we were about. We were just soldiers together, and that was it. It didn't matter what colour you were. But two, the black lads in the regiment were all on the boxing team. And I could name them now. Like, I mean, one of the lads, Wally Walford from maybe I shouldn't have named him. There you go, I've named him anyway. Wally Walford from the Manor Estate in Sheffield. He used to spar with Bomber Graham, and we used to go out and patrol in Belfast. And he's a black man in my regiment. This is the thing about, like, the army meant to be racist and all this. And he's getting racist abuse from Irish Republicans who are calling him all the names under the sun. Yeah. He used to hand his rifle over, take his helmet off, and because he was a boxer, he'd stand toe to toe with any man. So he was just knocking these guys out in the middle of Belfast, But the point is, it's like what you're saying, right? That back then, that we're talking 80s and 90s, there, mid 80s to the early 90s. Back then, like, it genuinely wasn't. I thought we got to a stage in the country where nobody was looking. Oh, well, he's black or he's white. Yeah. When you're in the army, you were just in the army. In my regiment, anyway. I know there was some racism in other regiments, but not in my regiment. You were just in the army together, and that was basically, kind of the way it was. And there was none of that sort of stuff. And now you're seeing it where it's almost like we're all being defined by what color we are, and I just find that insidious. I just, that's why.
Politically, it is insidious.
The far right don't like me, and far left don't like me, because both the far right and the far left, they want to instill this identity politics and make us defined by the color of our skin. And I just, to me, Martin Luther King Jr., and I've said this so many times on these live streams, you've got to be judged by the content of your heart and not
and that's
definitely.
That's ideal, you see. With something like that, that's ideology.
Yeah.
In a perfect world, that's exactly how it would be. But unfortunately, you won't get that. You saw
what do you think? What do you think's gone wrong, Shaun? Because, like, I could be looking at things through rose-tinted glasses, because all I can talk about is my own experience. I'm not a historian. I'm just looking at how I've seen life. How have we gone from what I saw, where it seemed like, okay, there was a bit of, there's bigotry everywhere. It doesn't matter whether it's racism
no matter where you go, you're right.
Yeah, you're always going to get bigotry, right? But it seems to have, in the past few years, almost from nowhere, that there's this stuff's kind of exploded, and especially since George Floyd. What's going on there? What's happening?
From what I've seen over the years, obviously it's anecdotal, so it's not. I wouldn't say I'm speaking for everyone, all black people, but from what I've seen, the resentment undercurrent. When they say, "Oh, the blood boils up," it's water on the bridge, but you apply a little heat to it, it boils over.
Yeah.
What happens? There's a lot of hidden resentment, especially with the social economic status we've been there, well, especially in my background, from the 60s, 50, 60 years, been there. You know, they're thinking, oh, why haven't we got a certain amount of businesses? Why don't we have more political capital where we can influence, you know, the demographic and political parties? You know, some of it is envy because, look, we can't get some of the privileges that we thought we'd get here that our grandparents did when they came over. Yeah, obviously the poverty, lack of opportunity. Because I know, to be fair, I know there's a lot of talented brothers from my community that they've not amounted to anything, even though they've done well at school or college, or they had a skill or talent that could have developed into elite level, but the opportunities fallen by the wayside, or they've been wayward in character, so they haven't grasped those opportunities. So that leads to resentment. And then when they do come across, you know, maybe the odd bigger comment or odd racism, and people say, you look, you know what, they're the devil. We're over here because, you know, slavery, and they owe us. And you got that kind of chip on the shoulder, victim mentality, and things like that. That's why it happens. And then with flashpoints like the George Floyd and the Dante Wright, people get real steamed up and say, you know what, enough is enough. I've had enough of this. And then you know what happens? It spreads to other people and they think, you know what, mob mentality, opportunism, jump on the bandwagon. And what I've noticed, because as you know, I marched with BLM in 2016. And yeah, when I went in, there's a lot of people trying to make money out of the pain and anguish of people. And I said, wait a minute, that's we're supposed to be like kind of ideological leaders and making sure that all we want is, you know, a fair do like everyone else into society. And then people are trying to hijack it with making a quick buck, or trying to elevate themselves as some kind of community leader for, you know, a bit of, you know, the crumbs from the people to the same table that they say they despise. Like I've seen some of the heroes that have come about the last year. A couple of them have approached on social media, talking to and said, oh, you're too big for me now because you're speaking to Prince Harry. But I said, wait a minute, I thought he's a justice war, and then this system must be pulled down. But now you get a bit of crumbs from the 10 masters table. All of a sudden, yeah, that's fine. You don't really care about all that. So that's why I don't really bother with all that again. I don't really bother with
I mean, I think that's exactly right, and I think the reality is, I mean, if you look at white working class communities, I think that study that came out recently was very interesting because two things that highlight: one, the West Indian community, the working class West Indian community is underprivileged, the males, and the white working class male community that we you know are at basically at the bottom of that's the two demographics at the bottom of the pile. So the Africans that for some reason, I don't know what it's to do with the churches or whatever, but the Africans seem to be doing better. The Indians seem to be doing better. You know, Chinese. So I just thought that was an interesting thing because again, I think there's a lot of parallels between what's happening, and this is where, to me, this is where we can find common ground and the white working class. Not that there is a white working class community, because it doesn't even work like that. It's not like there's this homogenous lump of white working class people.
There's so many variations and nuances.
What the state has always wanted to do, and not the state, the establishment's always wanted to do, is keep people down and keep people oppressed and keep people pushed down. And we're seeing exactly the same thing in Northern Ireland with, you know, working class Protestant communities. Definitely been disadvantaged and been pushed down. Of course, you know, 50 years ago, the boot was on the other foot, and it was the Unionist Protestants that were in the ascendancy, and they were perceived to be holding, you know, nationalists back. So all these things, you know, there's truth in them, but to me, what we need to do is try and bring everybody together in a way that you don't have to compromise on what you believe, but at the same time, you can unite under one thing. And do you know what? I didn't even want to talk about this tonight, Shaun. You know, I wanted to talk about the other stuff, but I think this is so important because it's kind of naturally just.
It links into it. It links into it all. It links into it all.
Definitely.
The feminism and the parental alienation, like we was going to speak about, it's into all that. There's division, so that people are easiest to control.
Yeah,
you get them fighting amongst each other. They say they take their eye off the prize. Of course it is, because in the world of mass media and social media, they said people can mobilize it in the drop of a hat. When I was a kid, you had paper petitions. You had to walk around to tons of people, basically like a full-time job. Now you can say, you know what, put this online, sign this. WhatsApp, let's meet up here. It gets wind, snowballs, and all of a sudden, I said, Jesus, they're mobilized so quick.
Yeah.
And it's harder because a lot of these mediums are encrypted now because they want to keep the privacy. It's harder for police to snoop. And they're thinking, oh, we can't have this. So what's the best way to do it? Colonial tactics, divide and conquer.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And that's what that's what I'm seeing over here. I'm seeing, any dissent bin. And what happens in Northern Ireland with really what I call my community, which is the sort of Protestant, unionist loyalist community. What's happening with my community? They're being demonized. The media's demonizing them all the time. They're saying, look, that they're actually demonizing people, saying they're undereducated. That look at what they're doing. They're just marching around, beating the drum, all that sort of stuff, wrapping themselves in the Union Jack, and it's constantly demonizing. Keep that community down and to control them and make them feel worthless and make them feel that their cause is beaten and that they can't achieve anything. And I think. I saw that in England when I was doing those marches in England. I saw exactly the same thing with Tommy and our community that were marching against the terrorism and against the grooming gangs. We were demonized all the time. People saying we were far right. I'm telling you now, I marched with thousands of people. We did one demo, Shaun, and we had 70,000 people in the centre of London, and we had black people, we had Asian people, we had every single background. We had veterans, we had football hooligans, we had. Put it this way, every single football firm from all around the country came together. There wasn't one bit of violence. There wasn't one arrest in that whole demonstration. You think about that, 70,000 football hooligans from different firms in the centre of London.
Yeah, because
with a whole lot of ex-squaddies, and there wasn't one arrest. But that wasn't reported in the media,
Yeah, they won't do that. Yeah, they won't do that. Yeah, they're trying to control the narrative. That's what happens. Trying to control the narrative.
So, what I would love to see is a way of bringing all these streams together so we can get people. I'm really against the movement Black Lives Matter for ideological reasons, not because Black lives don't matter, but because I think it's a communist plot to subvert the the community and to control the black community. I don't believe they've got the interests of the people at heart, but to get that energy that's there from also all different parts of the community, because everybody's marching at the minit. Everybody's demonstrating. Everybody's angry. And how can we get people together that I think it'd be an amazing thing if people started actually standing together for what we believe together, rather than what divides them. Yeah, exactly.
You know what it is? It's because some people, like you said, they feel disenfranchised and they think they should get more than others, because of the historical prejudices and what's gone on in the past. That's what, with that kind of pain, and if you remember, it's passed down generation to generation. Because look, my parents used to tell me, look, you got to work 10 times harder than a white man. The system set against you. And they used to pump this into my head as a child, constantly. So that will come out, especially if you're in a mind where you don't really have critical thinking and you don't really read or educate yourself, and you think, wait a minute, that's not exactly true. You got black conservatives thriving. You've got Indians. Absolutely. They're a net contribution to the exchequer in terms of taxation. I've seen Somalians come over here and doing better than some of the aspects of my community because they've got the Islamic thing that unite. Even though they're they're Muslims, they're Arab Muslims, white Muslims, Indian Muslims, Muslims from Africa. The Islam seems to unite them, and that's why they're more effective force like that.
That's
a bit harder.
That's absolutely true, and that's like, at the end of the day, my opinion on Islam, and anybody that's watched this channel for more than 5 minutes knows my opinion on Islam. But the reality is, what they've got is they've got the Ummah, which is the worldwide Islamic community, and they have got a lot of resources that they can tap into.
And
we ain't got any of that. Yeah. When we're marching around, I was talking to someone about this earlier. When we're marching around the streets, don't get me wrong, it's great. You get a good buzz and there's good atmosphere, and you have you're gonna have a drink afterwards, and we make great speeches and we try and get people together. But we're not organized. We're not properly organized. We're not organized in the way that the far left are. We're not organized in the way that the Islamists are, and we're not even organized in the way that the nationalists that want to break the UK up are. They've got finance behind them. They've got
of course. But that's because they network. See, look,
exactly.
Yeah, they network. See, people like me, we meet up from word of mouth referrals, gone to a couple of marches because we have certain personal values and ideology that we're aligned in. But then some people think, oh, Shaun, what you doing going around there? Look, that Richard Inman, you see, he's right. What you doing? You're being a seller. I said, but in terms of, like, say, fathers' rights, men's rights, you know, UK British citizens. He said that's where we're aligned.
Exactly.
Obviously, culturally, there's differences there, and obviously, we don't see eye to eye and everything because you know, like before when we had the debates about BLM and obviously the history of the slavery.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know,
go on.
Yeah, totally. We've been like almost at loggerheads, but like the thing is, we've still got a relationship, we've still got a friendship, even though. And this is the thing: I've got friends that are Irish Republicans, proper Irish Republicans, and they know exactly what I think about the IRA and Irish Republicanism, and I would stand toe to toe with them and argue up and down. But at the end of the day, when I walk away, I'm not thinking any less of that person as a friend because they're a friend. You know what I mean? So like, you know, and this is what a lot of people get lost on this. They can't go, well, hold on, we can separate someone's politics from their personality because and that's what's wrong with social media. Because believe you me, there'll be a lot of people on the far right will be condemning me for doing this stream tonight. I don't give a toss about them.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Same with me. You gotta realize when they said, Shaun, you must say BLM in 2016. They said, but not in 2020. They said the reason why, because when I looked into it, there's some things about nuclear families and they're against black business. Because like you said, there's a lot of socialism in it.
Yeah.
The Antifa business. So I said, look, I can understand obviously the pain thing. I have marched for it, but obviously because of the killings, and I don't like obviously black people being killed indiscriminately because of the color of their skin. But I said at the same time, there's certain things when I read into it and they started to put up their manifesto and like their mission statement said some of this LGBTQT dominating the leadership positions, saying they wanted to dismantle nuclear families. I said, then what would happen to black people? What happened to me, my parents, man and wife, who had a nuclear family, 3 kids, left the council estate to move into a house, you know, got credible jobs, became more, for us, maybe even look middle class because they got a couple of properties.
Exactly.
I said, so you're saying that is no good then? So I said, you can't say you speak for all black people. That's madness. And so obviously that's why in 2020 I didn't really march with them. I said, look, if that's what you're promoting, then you're against me because I'm heterosexual. I have a fiance, and even though I've got a blended family because I've got a child outside of my current partner, I said I believe I've got certain personal values that might be seen as right wing with corporal punishment, disciplining children without the state interfering. I said I have aligned with a lot of conservatives with that. You see what I mean? Even though I do believe in infrastructure being owned by government and not being used for profit-making private corporations, but I said in certain values I do have right-wing traits. So
you see, I think the reality is what you're talking about there is they are what we call traditional values. Because when I was growing up, you know, at the end of the day, I wasn't like, when I grew up, I wasn't particularly religious. I mean, I got into Christianity when I was in my 20s, and you know, to my shame, I've kind of drifted away from that. But the reality is, I still believe all that. I still absolutely believe in Christianity. I believe it's absolutely right and absolutely true. I'm very patriotic when it comes to Britain, not in a you know, a sort of, you know, racist way. I believe in like civic nationalism, that basically, you know, if you live in the UK and you're happy enough to serve under that flag and to support that country and love that country, and you've made it your home, then, you know, that's what being in Britain's about to me. Like, you know, the people that love the country and want to make the country succeed, you know. So like, and I think those sort of values there is what I was brought up by my parents like that. I was brought up to yes, be very patriotic, to love the country, but to love everybody that came to the country as well, that came to the country, basically make the country better, and to say, well, I'm one of my friends from Speaker's Corner there, brains fried today, I can't remember his name. It'll come to me. But he says to me, he says, I'm Indian and British, you know, and he says, I'm not British first or Indian first. He says, I'm just Indian and British, you know, and I'm English and British. You know, I class myself as an Englishman and British.
Yeah, because you're born in England. I can understand that.
Yeah, exactly.
But obviously, people were mocking about that, though.
Yeah,
people were mocking. Certain people were mocking.
What were they saying, Shaun? What was that? The people were having to go at you about that?
No, yeah, some people mock you about that. Some people mock you about that. It's like when people say, "Oh, where are you born?" I said, "Obviously, I'm born in England."
Yeah,
that's what it says on my birth certificate. I was born in London.
Yeah.
So I mean, Westminster, St Thomas Hospital, right near the river.
You're English. You're English.
Yeah, exactly. But obviously, some people say you can't say that. You're a black man. So I said, well, obviously, my grandparents come from Jamaica, and obviously, that's the culture that at home I eat the food. I like the music. You see what I mean? But I said, obviously, I'm born and grown here, though. So I said, when I go to Jamaica, they tell me, "Why? He's a foreigner. He's a foreigner." Yeah, English man. I said that's why I said I don't judge people too much if they want to classify themselves. And I said that's up to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. I said as much as obviously we know the historical prejudices and obviously slavery and so forth. I said our grandparents came over for a better life, and my grandparents, even though they had to work hard, they said they took home some of the wealth and went back home, built a nice house, owned a few land, had their children over here, educated them in the British system. So I said, obviously, it's not as bad as people try and make it out. It is. But I remember a lot of people that they say, they don't really like. Sorry about that, my son. They said, they said some people, they come over and say, look, a lot of them, they don't particularly despise England and said, oh, Britain's no good and thing. It's a lot of it's because they're disfranchised. I said, I've seen white people grow up and said, look, I don't like this country. It doesn't represent me. I don't like the politics thing. I said, but they don't get as much stick because obviously they don't look like me. But in our community, they're like, oh, well, you've been a sellout. You've been an Uncle Tom. What are you talking about? I said, look, it's as much as we got the historical, but I said, look, if you go home to Jamaica, people, in my experience, people try to add on, the English tax. They said, oh, local products that you buy, they say, well, you come from England, so you must have big money. So they try to, charge me more. I've had to go over to defend my grandparents when people tried to intimidate them because they said, you're a returnee from a long time in England and we don't like you. You see, and you're not doing enough for the community. So I said, it's hard. I said, if I go to Africa now, they said, look, you've lost yourself. You can't speak the language. Where are you actually from? Do you not even know? So you get all that. And that's where you get the conflicted interest. And that's why you get so much different opinions, different experiences, bring about different ideology and how people think and what they relate to. So I don't mind people being like that. I'm just saying, look, you can't speak for everybody. You can't speak for me. You can't tell me that you're more of a black man because you say, oh, yeah, it don't matter what BLM represent, I'm march with them anyway. Because I said, of course, if there was a war and we was attacking, like the whole country was attacking black people, so of course I'd fight with my own. But at the same time, if foreigners came into England, like say from France or America or Australia, and they said they're going to try and sack England and take over the government, I said I would fight as well because they're coming into a country. So I'd have to fight. I said I couldn't put up with that. So if I was lived in the Second World War times, so that I would have fought in the army. So I mean, if the Germans are going to come over and kill me, so if that makes me less of a black man, I guess so it is. So
and I think, and again, I mean, the reality is obviously there's history, and then there's basically our own personal experience of living through history, right? Do you want to come on this? Do you want to come on the feed?
I'll bring you some later.
You're on TV.
Sorry.
No, but one of the things that I was in, I was involved in Sierra Leone for about 10 years, just working in charities out there after the Civil War, and I was speaking to one of the guys who was a pastor of a church out there. He lived right the way through the Civil Wars, lived there under British rule, and I said to him, Michael, I says, tell me this. I says, what was better? Was it better when the Brits were in control, or is it better now? And he said, being honest, he said, I wouldn't say this publicly. He says, but being brutally honest, he says, it was far better when there was British rule. I think Britain pulled out of Sierra Leone in the 60s. This guy's quite an elderly guy. He's probably 70 plus now. But he said it was better because it was better administered. And one of the things that the British do very badly is when they withdraw from a country, they basically put the biggest gangster that they can find and the toughest guy and the most ruthless guy in charge of the country, and then they walk away and leave.
And they're only concerned with themselves. They don't see it as, oh, let me look after my people. I just want to make as much money and have power and influence. And that's a human trait.
That's the story. The story of the big story of colonialism is actually how the country's left more than anything else, because the way they left was in many ways a betrayal to the biggest thug that would flex his muscles the most and say, I'm going to run the country and I'll rule it with a rod of iron. And again, Sierra Leone, I can only speak from personal experience, but when I was in Sierra Leone, the guys in Sierra Leone were saying, see, if the British Army hadn't come in when was it 2000, I think, whenever, late 90s, early 2000s, whenever the Civil War in Sierra Leone, if they hadn't have come in when they did and dealt with those, again, it was like drug gangs, to be quite honest with you. They're just having a go at each other and really wrecking the place. they said if the British Army hadn't come in and basically, you know, put the foot down and dealt with those gangs, that Sierra Leone would still be in chaos now. And so it's like, so all these things, it goes against the narrative of what you read in the media, but all you can go on is what people are telling you on the ground. And if somebody tells you something, loads of people that live in there tell you on the ground, you've got to go, hold on a minute, there's got to be something in that. And that was what happened in Sierra Leone. Was actually down to one guy who I think he ended up head of the British Army, but he was head of the paras, and he went in there and basically there was people getting massacred and he didn't have any orders on what to do. He said, I'm going to stop them, and if I have to shoot people to stop the massacring people, I'll shoot them. And they just went in and they stopped the violence, and he did it autonomously. And Tony Blair was the prime minister at the time, and Blair was going to sack him. As far as I know, Blair was going to sack him, and because it worked and they actually stopped the violence, he ended up getting promoted and ended up, I think, head of the British Army. You know, so that's, you know, and there's a lot, you know, so there's a lot of stories like that, and again, those stories aren't been told, and it's all been brushed under the rug, and you know, and half truths have been told.
No, to be fair, even since we first spoke last year, I read a book. Fun enough, my partner's dad gave it to me, Black Britons by David Olusoga. Yeah, a lot of stuff I learned in there I didn't even realize, and I seen white people stand up for black people more than our own. Like you know, with certain of the evangelicals, and there was a sailor, was it Quadna Kofi or something like that, and he was a slave rescued by a Granville shark, and then once he lost his job on as a private buccaneer, he went and returned to Bunce Island near Sierra Leone, and he became a slave. And Granville Sharp said, I rescued you from slavery, and then you gone back and be doing that. I said, how does that work? And he was a black African. You see what I mean? So obviously these things are swept on the carpet because they said, look, he's promoting this unity. You can't say these things openly and publicly. It brings down us as you know, a united front. I said, no, but these things are true. I said, look, imagine a white man was doing more for us than this black African, because he wanted to chase money and he thought, I've got to make a living. So I know that because of what my experiences, I know slaving. And it's Bunce Island, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it at all. I couldn't believe it. So, but these things are only put down in. I remember it's a long book though. It took me about, because I was at the time I was working. It took me a good 6 months to finish it from back to back. He opened up a lot of things that I had a general idea, but I didn't know specifics, because I knew about Wilberforces, you know, abolitionists, but I didn't realize how, you know, the infrastructure, what the tactics that employ, how certain people were against them, and even some of them went against their own here to help us out. You know what I mean? Even with and
do you know the thing about Wilberforce was that was his life's mission. I mean, that was his, you know, that's basically all he did when he became a Christian. He just gave himself totally to getting slavery overturned and and stopped. And of course, this is the thing too. It's a bit like Brexit in a way. Once the ship's turned in a certain way, and you know it's gone in the right direction, and you've got freedom. Once Britain became totally against slavery, they then went round and the Royal Navy went round and freed slaves and sank slave ships, and actually became a sort of liberating force, and but that took however long it took. I think Wilberforce he did.
Well, I know it was basically a program for a good 80 years. The abolitionist society, 80 years, and even then it wasn't perfect. And yet people in the country say, no, what you're doing, you're messing up the commerce. Lived by this for years. And obviously, the UK government gave reparations to the bankers that used to back and insurers that used to back the trading. So even though Britain did do that, at the same time they still had a hand in it. You see what I mean? They still had a hand in it. So that's why people get upset, because they're thinking, I don't know whether to trust it, because they're doing that on one hand, but then on the other hand, they're still doing this. They're still interacting. Like you see, like Liverpool, I didn't realize at the time, Liverpool backed the secessionists in America in the Civil War. I said, but that's crazy. Because I always thought they're kind of left social and they fight and strive and anti-racist and that. But I said, Liverpool historically steeped in it. Even though when we came over in the 60s, like my grandparents' generation, a lot of them, if it was London, Bristol, and Liverpool, they were going to. It's serious, but it's hard, because when you got it merged so close in such a big, great area, it's hard to say, you know, who should I represent? Who should I stand on? So people said, you know, let's choose the obvious one, the color of our skin. So
exactly. And I mean, I think the other thing is, I mean, if you know the other man you talk about Sierra Leone, John Newton, you know, he was the same. He was a slave trader, and he became a Christian, and realized slave trading was wrong. But it took a long time to actually stop being a slave trader, even though he knew it was wrong. It took a long time to come apart from that, and he had a real struggle, spiritual struggle. And he before he became a Christian, he actually ended up a slave himself. He was actually he was the same as the guy that you were talking about. He was in Sierra Leone as a slave because he did a business deal in Sierra Leone with an African. I mean, this is the thing too. A lot of Africans were involved in the slave trade.
Of course. It wasn't like, to be fair, let's sweep under the carpet. Yeah.
White people weren't just turning up and lassoing a whole lot of black people and throwing them on the ship. It was a trade. They were buying slaves off slave traders, and it was like,
of course, definitely. But you know what happened? You know what happened is because that's why you get a lot of not so much now, but antipathy before, like, oh, I'm not African. I remember I used to tell my granddad, I said, Granddad, black people are from Africa originally, isn't it? And that's why he came over. Maybe your great grandparents were part of, you know, being brought over in as slaves. He says, no, me's not African. Me's not African. Me's Jamaican. My father born in Jamaica. My grandfather born in Jamaica. So that's how he's feeling. But I know when I looked at it, the reason why is because of that background that he knew and told us, said, look, we were sold out by our own. But a lot of people say, no, you can't say that publicly or in front of white people because they'll just use that to divide us. But this happens everywhere. I said you had white people enslaving people from Europe, like the Saxons, when I read it at school. Vikings coming looting and pillaging over here. You see what I mean? The Anglo-French wars between, you know, the Tudors, you see what I mean? Fighting for territorial land. You had all that. When it suited them, they'll say, yeah, look, it's the French white man, an English white man. Saxon against the Vikings, so they had their conflicts like that as well, where we had our tribal ones. You see what I mean? Igbo, Yoruba, and so forth.
The other, don't forget about the Barbary pirates. I mean, there was the Barbary pirates from from Morocco, Algeria, all that sort of area.
Like the Moors.
They kidnapped an entire village from Cornwall somewhere.
Cool, I've read about that.
And took them, took them down to Morocco.
You had Ben Yusuf, isn't it? When he used to fight with El Cid at Valencia. The Moors used to dominate large parts of the Mediterranean Europe. I mean, so I know that, but obviously the way they say it is we didn't commercialize it like the Europeans. That's what the viciousness about it. And they said, look, and I said, well, unlike the Jews, we haven't received reparations. So that's where you get the antipathy in our community, that viciousness. I said, oh, look, I slaved and labored, and look, I'm in low-paid work. I still haven't risen to no position where I can be financially free. And it's all because of these historical prejudices that are still affecting us today, which into some degree it is. But I said, look, we need to do more for ourselves, and we need to unite and organize like the Muslims. You see what I mean? Unite and organize like the feminists.
Do you know what I think is one of the most hypocritical things? People like Lewis Hamilton, saying about what a hard time he's had, such a terrible hard life. I mean, my goodness, if you want to see privilege, just look at Lewis Hamilton, for goodness sake.
But to be fair though, he's a world-class driver. I wish I had his talent.
Exactly. If that's oppression, I'd be oppressed all day long. No bother. I'll have some of Lewis Hamilton.
Of course. Well, that's what I said before when I said there's a couple of social justice warriors that that I knew from BLM. And they got, they got a little press, rescuing people on camera. And then all of a sudden, they're in the aristocracy. No, we can't. You're not being approved by the gatekeeper. Sure.
Oh, you mean?
I don't mind signing a few petitions, but we can't be seen to openly support.
Is this the guy that rescued the undercover policeman? Is this the guy that rescued the undercover cop? He does not realize he's been played like a fiddle.
It's mad. I said, he can't be feeling. Obviously, because they're being financed and looked after and given a public profile, they can't be seen to bite the hand that feeds them. So I can understand that.
That's exactly
what they're trying to change it incrementally by creating the alliances that we're talking about. But obviously, we don't have the connections and we don't have the network.
Sean, I had a guy on the channel last feed before this one, and this guy's an academic, and he studied the way the state infiltrated terrorist organizations in Northern Ireland on both sides. And that's exactly what they do. They get people of influence and they get them and they buy them and they get control of them. And then they use them. They use them to push their agenda. And listen, the British government's been doing this for years. They know exactly what they're doing and they know exactly how to do it. And they know exactly, and so when you see stuff like that in the press, the day that happened, I said, because all of a sudden they said he's an ex-policeman. I said he's not an ex-policeman. I said he's a flipping undercover agent. The white guy.
I remember you saying last day.
So that's that's the sort of stuff that's going on. But I think from the point of view of where how we sort of fix things, because to me I think it's a dangerous situation. The reality is, I literally don't care what color someone's skin is. I genuinely don't, and I don't like people that are obsessed with color. I just think I find it offensive, whether it's black people that are obsessed with being black or white people that are obsessed with being white. I think it's dangerous, because what happens is you do end up with a situation like we had in Northern Ireland, where somebody would walk into a wrong area, like you were saying earlier there, Shaun. You walk into a wrong area. It's not like that now in Belfast, but in the Troubles. By the way, I wasn't brought up in Northern Ireland. I was brought up in Middlesbrough, so it was like, I came here as a soldier. When I came here as a soldier, if a Protestant walked into a Catholic area, or if a soldier walked into a Catholic area, especially a soldier or a policeman, and you were off duty and you were armed, there was a very good chance you weren't getting out of there alive. And that's not been dramatic. That's just the situation. Even now, 30 years on, there's parts of Belfast that I wouldn't go and have a drink in certain pubs in Belfast, because if they knew anything about me, I could very well I probably wouldn't get killed, but I could certainly get a good a good kicking. And and that's, I don't want to see a situation where white people are scared to go into areas that are predominantly black and black people are scared to go into areas that are predominantly white, because if we get in that situation, we are in a very, very bad place. And to me,
we are in a bad place. To be fair, though, most of it is not like that. To be fair, like you said, a lot of it is the newspapers drum it up. Yeah, I grew up in Brixton, to say 9, 10, and at those times there's hardly any white people there. But the way Brixton is now, it's cosmopolitan.
Is that right?
Drunk and lying on the street, they're not being robbed or beaten up. It's not like that no more. You're talking about a good 30 years ago now, 25 years. Where you got the last message of that. No, it's not so much like that. But a lot of that is, then again, due to gentrification. My grandparents had properties around there. They went back home to the Caribbean, like Jamaica. The youngsters, they lived suburban because the properties were cheap at the time. So they said, we can't afford to, because our parents, grandparents took the money and built houses abroad. We don't, and the inheritance we got is not enough to buy back into those areas. So we've been further out suburban. And then the price drops, and then the uppie said, look, we're getting a bargain here. Areas that are gritty and dangerous, we can now get in for much cheaper, and then we can raise the prices and move those ones that are not in social housing or council based out. So that's how it always goes. It's cycle. It's in cycles. Even here, they call it Belvedere now in Southwark. So Peckham said, but you see the house prices around there. I couldn't afford it. Afford it. So it's that's how it goes. But a lot of people, they don't have time to focus on the big picture or really watch for patterns. They're just trying to fight life, earn a living so they can survive and feed their children. Maybe get a house and a car and die and that's it. Start again. That's what it is. A lot of people, they never got time to look into it like you have with the historical prejudices, find out what's the real reason, the critical thinking. It's a bit much for them, so they rather just believe, the narrative that they're pushed, or people they trust. They just believe what they say without research and fact finding.
I think. Do you know what, Shaun? I think in the past few years, I always knew all this stuff, but I was just working too hard and trying to provide for my family to actually do anything about it and try to stand up. And I think basically what happened while we were all earning a crust and trying to support our families and doing what we could to survive, the people who are into this, radical feminism, they're into the identity politics, they're into who are basically far left. They took over the country while we were sleeping.
To be fair, I always saw it coming, because when I was young, I said, wait a minute. Well, I used to do sociology at college when I done my A-levels. And the social sciences teacher, I remember Ginny Taylor, she said, "Oh, look, Shaun, you got to realize that patriarchal control is being destroyed. We're the third wave of women feminism at the time. And I said, yeah, I can tell that because I said, look, the welfare state is set up for women.
Yeah.
If there's any kind of extramarital affair, it's the man that is diabolical.
Yeah.
If you're cheating, and the woman, maybe she had a mental break or he wasn't treating her right.
Yeah.
Then obviously in the family course, when he said, you know what, I want to live with the children. Obviously, it wasn't always down to the system, but some dads would be, because they're working so hard, they don't get to spend that quality time with the children. Where the mum she's only working part-time or a live-at-home mother. So that creates a bit of division as well, and where they might favor the mother because they seem to be doing more. And then obviously they're rewarded for being, off with benefits. So it becomes work. You're rewarding that kind of structure. And then obviously, women start to, look, we've got more spending power now. We've got careers now. So we can move into, say, law. The media, as you can see in the press, is happening big. I've watched it from when I went to university, how much people have gone into journalism now that are feminists. On my course, mostly women that have done journalism, radio, broadcasting. Even in criminal youth justice, but I dropped out of that one though. Most of them were women, so I could see already the transference. In terms of child service, as you know, is female-centric. Human resources at work, mostly women. So I've seen the transition. School teachers, it was when I went primary school in Brixton, St. Andrews, it was kind of even, I would say 60-40 men. Seeing that turn around now, you may be in 85-15 in terms of women. Even my children's school, most of the teachers are women. So, and then that kind of ideology seeps into, the boy children. And they're saying, oh, women must be protected and looked after, and you must work and bend over backwards. And even no matter how badly she treats you, you must be a footstool because of the historical prejudice, like my community with slavery, the historical prejudice of male control and discarding us and telling our children are bastards. And we got no financial help. So this is our payback now. So I can't be responsible for what happened in the powdered wig days. I can only be responsible for now. So you get, maybe women womanized. So they think, oh, he's a cheater, so he's a demon. I'm going to make his life difficult. Or he moves on, finds someone else. Oh, he's maligning me and that's eating into my maintenance checks. So I'm going to make things difficult for him and besmirch his reputation. You get all this, and it's so bad that some people become, like in my community, self-loathing. Where you get people that are self-loathing white people because they're historically guilty for slavery, and you get self-loathing black people says, oh, you know what? If you can't beat them, join them. You now got male feminists, which I call manjoiners. Male feminists that self-loathing. I said, I'm so appalled of being a man, and why are we killing and raping and looting? I said, yeah, but think about it. I said, they're only because they're only telling you the bad points of our agenda. They're not telling you positive. I said, how do you get to like what that Jenny Green Jones in March, which she said, I think we should have a curfew for men. And see, for 6 p.m. I said, surely we must unite on this. We must unite this time on this. People came out and kicked them there, but it was nowhere near the vitriol and vicious.
Now, here's the thing, Shaun. Here's the thing about the curfew for men, right? Now, if that curfew involves the woman delivering us 10 pints of beer and getting us a nice video or a football match to watch, I'm all on for the curfew. Like, listen, I'll stay in at 6 o'clock every single night as long as I've got a nice bottle of scotch, 10 beers, and a football match to watch, or a good film. I'm happy enough. I'll be curfewed. I'll be curfewed all day long. But the only proviso is all the women have got to go out and then work after 6 o'clock, so the men can stay at home. That's right. Get drunk, watch football, and watch movies. Yeah,
of course. I told one of them, said, think about it. I said, even though she tried to pass it off as tongue-in-cheek joke, I said she was testing the waters. I've watched that. She was
serious.
She's a non-entity before. So what she does, they test the waters to see if they can garner that kind of support. Like what they done with the COVID passports. No. We don't want COVID passports. That's not on the agenda. Next minute, behind the scenes, there might be a possibility. Let's go and find out. We restrict people's freedoms, and they'll be more likely to support having a COVID passport. Now they're telling you in London, 90% of people, I think, I saw the other day, the papers, in tabloids, support COVID passports. So I said, where before they were like, no, this is an abomination. We must not. I signed a petition about it. But now people said, yeah, well, I've had enough of this lockdown, so let's just do it. COVID idiots, let's just do it. And that's what they do. They're socializing you, putting pressure in to say, you know what, we might as well. It's got to stop. And that's what they do.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what the feminists are doing with the self-loathing men. So you're rapists, pillagers. We're frightened to go out at night. I said, come on. Said, you're basing it on some people that had bad experiences, that are walked by those bad experiences, and then they try to tarnish everyone with the same brush. Said who's the likely to most rescue you if you're thinking of fire?
Exactly.
Firefighters usually men. So police officers mostly men.
And the thing is, I mean, but the thing is, the whole point of this is it's this continuation of the divide and conquer. And what this is doing, and this is, I put that little graphic up at the Lost Generation. It's just a picture of a lad just sitting up against the wall, just looking totally dejected. I mean, like when I was young, what men did was they went out, to the bar or to the nightclub, and they tried to chat with a woman. They maybe made a mess of it. They maybe got slapped, or they maybe were successful, or whatever it was. And now, can you imagine a young guy now trying to go and chat a woman up in a pub? I mean, he's probably going to get 10 years in prison for asking her out on a date.
I know. Well, you know what they would say is, why would he be? He's a social moron. He doesn't know how to approach women. There's no respect.
Exactly.
I said, but then there's some of you that don't respect yourselves. Just like you get men that don't respect themselves. So I worked, as you know, I worked the doors 14 years. Between 24 and 38. And I went out there. I remember I had my crutch roped. People said, "Search me, Mr. Bouncer." I said, "No, I'm not doing all that, because the next minute, if we don't get on, you're trying to say, oh, well, he touched me up." False allegations. I used to make sure there's CCTV cameras on the front. I had to stop an Asian woman, funny enough, hitting a white fella once. Southpaw, rangy, hit him with 2 right-hand leads. And she tried, and when I said, "You know what, you're out," she said, "He touched me." I said, "Is that right?" I said, "I got the camera right there. You want me to play it back?" I said, for that talk, I said, "You will never come back in here while I work here. Well, you will not be allowed back in." But she thought it was so reflexive, like, I can use that. And this is before the Me Too stuff, obviously, and before the big hoo-ha it is now with, the domestic abuse bill and men are sexual predators. She didn't hesitate in doing that. And I've seen someone else that was accused worked about rape and that. And when this fella said, I'm sick of this, I'm gonna go to the police and report it. It just, it's false, so there's no point in anything. There was no reprimanding. I said she should be getting the same treatment as a genuine rapist would. But I said they would never do that, because it's historical prejudice. She's only a woman. Poor precious means she needs to be defended. Maybe she's got mental health issues. Maybe she's depressed. But I said if that was men, butch up, take it on the chin, and go back out and get to work. So no wonder why the mind collapses and the suicides amongst us is higher. Well, people depressed, the walking, being homeless. Because they're not feeling valued. They're not feeling appreciated.
Exactly. I mean, if men have such a good time of it, why is it on average they die 10 years younger than women do?
I know. Male privilege to die first.
Male privilege. I mean, well, this is the thing. I mean, I'm at the bottom of the pecking order now, Shaun. I mean,
I've noticed that.
I'm white.
I've seen it.
And I'm male. And I'm heterosexual. So I mean, I am the worst of the worst. I mean, you don't get any lower. But that's the way society's gone, and it's insane. It's absolutely insane. People shouldn't be judged by what they look like.
You know why they do that? Because they said it's the evil empire being brought down. They said, they've been in such a position for so long. It's time we gave them a good kicking. That's how it goes. That's how it goes.
Of course it is. But I wouldn't like to see what would replace it, Shaun. And that's what worries me. To me, we've got.
It's gone too far.
Of course it's doing harm. It's doing harm, and it's doing harm to everybody. Because it's doing harm to women as well. Because at the end of the day, it's not good to be in a situation where men and women are in conflict. At the end of the day, the Bible's very clear that men and women are made in the image of God and they're made equal, right? They complement each other. They're not. They shouldn't be at loggerheads.
They're competing. That's right. It's not supposed to be competing, like you said. It's supposed to complement.
Complement. At the end of the day, and I genuinely believe that men and women have different roles. At the end of the day, I don't think a woman.
They do. I can't give birth to children. I'd love to have my own children, give birth, and not have to involve a woman if I could, but it's not possible physiologically. So I said that's just the way it is.
Exactly.
Otherwise, we'd have closed ourselves.
Would we have wanted in the First World War a whole lot of women charging across those battlefields in the Battle of the Somme and getting machine gunned by German soldiers? No,
of course not. They tell us we're cowards, and what are you doing? Allowing a woman to take up what you hide behind your woman's skirt? But I remember. You get some women that are like that, but then you got some women to be fair, what I've seen said, yeah, they don't care. They said, I don't mind. To be fair, there's a mixed race girl that I used to play football with when I used to play car league.
Yeah,
my early to mid 20s. Very, very, very good with the ball, skill, technical ability, but obviously physically, fitness, strength, speed. She wasn't a thing. But to take it, she said, "Listen, Shaun, stop taking it easy on me and play like you're playing with your normal mates." So you sure about that? Because I said it's not nice. It's not. But to be fair, I gave her a few kicks and thrown a couple of my mates. She took it. I was surprised. There was no quibbling. But you know, other women are, "Oh, I'm a victim. How dare you do that? That's assault."
Well, I mean, look, I'll be honest with you.
One or the other. You want equality?
I'll be honest with you, Shaun. See, some of the women in our movement have got more balls than the men. I'll tell you that for nothing.
Yeah.
I'm not naming them on the channel, but some of the women are really, they'll get stuck in and they'll have a go.
Yeah.
And
when I done my door SIA badge, my first one is that my practitioner was a woman. She was a second dan jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Ferocious. For any kind of occasion, first in, last out. And to be fair, I could tell she kind of loved it. So I said, wonder she a narcissist or some kind of psychopath. But I love it too much. She said, Jesus. But that's the thing. You get people like, you get women like that. Just like you get men that are cowards. You see what I mean? So you get like that. You can't. It's not always this true. It's not always based on gender.
But the reality is, on the whole, that's not the norm.
It's not the norm. It's not the norm.
It's not the norm. And at the end of the day, it's not it's not right or wrong. It's just that's just the way it is. It's just some some people are just more up for it than others. And
some others,
but no, when I did karate, I had the same. I mean, I remember I got some woman smacked me as hard as I've ever been punched by anyone in a karate just a sparring thing. And I was holding back. I'm going, I'm not going to hit her. She's a girl. Bang, and she fucking hit me the way I like. So so. But I think
they got a different mentality. They never see themselves as a victim. They never see themselves as a victim. That's the thing. The victim. You see, that's one thing from talking to you and Tom and Danny. I realize some people just don't see themselves ever, even if they get beaten up real bad. Never see themselves as a victim. And they're real vicious about it. They want revenge and things like that. So them people you can't legislate for. But there's others. As soon as I've seen people that said, you know what, come on, Shaun, let's have it. I may have won the fight, and they turned around and said, "Oh, you assaulted me, you beat me up." I said, "Wait a minute, I didn't bully ride you. You attacked me and said you, and then you found out your summation was wrong, that you couldn't take me, and then next minute you want to be screeding to the coppers. You see what I mean? So how does that work? I said, if I've been beaten up before when I was a teenager a couple of times. I never went and said, "Oh, PC Plod, look, he beat me up. Yeah, I was embarrassed and he assaulted me. I got a bloody nose and a black eye." I never went and done that. But some people do. So, but you can't legislate that. It's you got to be dealing with people with similar values to you that said, you know what, all right, do we all agree that we're going to sort this out man to man or woman to woman, and no one's going to go out there and it's all done and dusted. Because of embarrassment. Now they're thinking, look, I'm not going to let him get away with this. He upset me. He hurt me and embarrassed me. So what's the best way I can get back? Let's go down the route.
Exactly. Exactly. No, and that's and I think there's more and more of that. And if it's not, that, they'll come back and put a brick through your window or flip and and that's, I just find that sort of stuff insidious. I mean, they're the worst cowards. They are
the worst. They're the worst.
I've had plenty of kickings, and I've never ever gone to the police about being beaten up. And I've won a few as well. And at the end of the day, it's just the way life is, isn't it? You win some, you lose some, and that's it. I'm too old for all that now, though, Shep. I'm over 50 now. Once you get over 50, you don't want to say that. Look at Mike Tyson. You don't want to get Mike Tyson, mate. Mike Tyson said, I want to see where he's like when he's 60. If he's getting in the ring now at 50, he's going to, 55. Old Iron Mike. But having said that, I mean, Mike's had plenty of knocks around the head anyway, so he's
but it still looks tasty. Sure. I'm not sure if I could think if he got serious on me. You see what I mean?
Hey, I tell you what.
Me up. You see what I mean?
I tell you what. There's some lads my age, and you just know that you wouldn't mess with them.
That's what I'm saying. It's not everyone doesn't age the same. You see what I mean?
No, exactly.
And then some people they still got the fire burning bright in them.
Oh,
if you provoke it. Yeah, so I don't treat anyone like that. Oh, you know what? He's a grandpa. Like, I've seen different, especially on doors. I've seen a man in his late 50s punch up someone in the late 30s. When I mean total domination, it wasn't a fight; it was a beating.
Yeah.
But that's because they assumed, look, he's of age, he's past his best. I'm gonna rough him up. Yeah, I wouldn't. You can't assume that because you know what you're capable, but you never know what
you never forget what you know, do you, Shaun? You know.
Yeah, but what I find amazing that it wasn't like it was tactical. He beat him with physicality and fitness.
Yeah.
He must keep under the quiet ticking over.
I tell you what, there's again. I mean, we're totally going off on a tangent here. Like, but there's a guy I know. He's 66-year-old, and he's about 5'5", and his wife is about 5'5" as well. And I tell you something now. See, this guy, before lockdown, I'd go down to his little boxing gym in his garage, and we'd hit the bag and all that sort of stuff. And he just destroy you. Like, I mean, 66-year-old. But I just always thought, if him and his wife, because his wife's Chinese, if him and his wife were out in the pub one night and someone came over and gave her some racist abuse, I mean, she can fight like a flipping man as well. You know, two little guys, you know. And I'm saying, you never judge a book by its cover.
No, you can't. To be fair, I learned that lesson from about 19, but some people still haven't learned that.
No, exactly.
It's preconceived ideas, you see, and self-inflated ego. I notice people either have, you know, underrate themselves or overrate themselves. You never get the right balance. So that's why you get these, you know, aberrations of action and shocks like this. That's why. It's all
it's when you see someone's face and they just realize it's, you know. But anyway, we're going totally off on the tangent. Shaun, how do we solve this? What do we do, mate? How do we make this all better? How do we make it all go away?
To be fair, we got to get the reasonable people that have the similar values with us, and obviously we got to unite. Like, because I know that as with this, there's a lot of women that says, the feminism has gone too far, and I've seen some women said they're not feminists. Like even my own woman, she wrote a blog about, you know, when that Sierra Leone died a few weeks ago. She wrote a blog, and there's a lot of women that condemned her, trying to say that she's selling out the gender and why would you write that as a black woman and so forth. White feminists that carrying on and said, no, but I said she's balanced. All she's saying is that she has a son and a daughter, and she wouldn't want to see any of them suffer. And she's not going to make up allegations to have position and privilege over another gender. Yeah, that's how it should be. But what happened, like you said, we don't organize enough. So we need to organize, to be fair. See, look, I've been trying to meet you for a while now. We got to stick to these kind of plans.
Yeah.
Have regular meetings, organize, and see where it takes us. And combine our resources. To be fair, it can be done, but obviously I know everyone have their own lives to live and their own families, and obviously work.
Do you know what it is, Shaun? It's time and money. It's always those two things. It's time and money, because we've all got to earn a crust. It's not getting any easier to make money. And you know, it's literally, there's so many different causes that are worthy, and you've got, I mean,
and you're divided.
My massive thing at the minute is keeping the United Kingdom together, keeping England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland as one United Kingdom. And you know, that's my big worry. If we lose that, if we lose the United Kingdom, I've lost you there, Shaun. Are you still there, bro?
Yeah, I'm still there. Yeah. Can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you now. Yeah, I lost you there for a bit. But no, you know, it's keeping the UK together is just a vital thing for me. So all my energy and everything else is going into that at the minute. But I'm still really concerned about this identity politics, you know, white against black against white, you know, woman against man, you know, transgender against everybody that's not transgender. You know?
Of course.
You know, so
to be fair, remember that ties in though. What we're dealing with on the sub levels is ties in with the United Kingdom, because obviously you got Scottish people saying they don't want to come out. They want to come out because of the European Union, Brexit. You got people saying, "Oh, look, Ramonas."
Yeah,
you got people saying, "Oh, look, you haven't given Brexit a chance, and you're still complaining." And then you get all this conflict. Look, I saw the other day in our London mayor race, one of the candidates was saying about having another referendum and going back to our European brethren. So I mean, so I said, yeah, but we have not seen the Brexit in its full form yet. So how can you've not even given it? You haven't given it 30 years, 40 years like you did with the European Union. So how can you then see if it's going to be any better? Like, you got to let it run its course. You got to flip flop every minute as soon as there's a bit of pressure or the transitional period that you want to flip flop.
Yeah,
and that's what causes the fights and the internal conflicts, and that's what's causing the union to feel the pressure of almost breaking up.
I think the other thing is, Shaun, that, like, you know, there's a lot of people, you know, I've got to know you just through chatting, you know, texting and what have you. And I think I've got the measure of you. And I think you've got, you know, you're genuine. What you say, what comes out of your mouth, you believe what you say, and you'll say what you believe, right? But there's a lot of people out there that are disingenuous, and they've got an agenda.
Yeah, definitely.
Is to destroy and to mix it up and basically, you know, to create havoc in the UK. And the problem is, a lot of these are the people in power. I'm talking about the far left.
Yeah, they're enriching themselves for me.
Yeah.
I've seen it with the Tory government.
Yeah.
Imagine I tried to get a contract where I had my last maintenance job. I tried to get a contract at ISS.
Yeah.
And they turned around and said, no, you're not a preferred contractor. When I tried to go on they said, oh no, that's basically, you know, that's for the approved people. I'm not in the special handshake crew. You see what I mean?
And what was that from people that were left wing?
You know, lying. It's not, it's not thing, and it's the same. Yeah, but the same with Labour as well. When I've come in and said, oh look, you're supposed to be representing more, you know, the BAME community. But then I spent some of the odious policies, so they're the same, really. They're the same.
Of course they are.
Preferred contractors, you're not in their special list. So I said, no, we don't know nothing about you. You haven't presented yourself to us. You've not done anything for, you know, our cause. So why should we represent you? You don't command influence where you've got a lot of people behind you that can change things. So why should we listen to you? That's how it is. That's why we got to unite. If we have enough numbers, and they'll have to listen to us. If we turn around and say, you know what, we're boycotting this, we're not doing that, and we stick to it, not worry about, oh, you know what, we might lose a few pounds here, or, you know, be under pressure. They would have to be forced to listen because they only rule at our behest.
Exactly.
But there's not enough of us united, like you said, united. That's the thing. The unity.
I think that's why it's good to have these conversations, because I mean, me and you would, I'm sure, if we dug down, I mean, I think we agree on a lot of things, but there's probably a lot of things we don't agree on. But the reality is, that's what it's about: sitting down, having conversations. Obviously, I'm in Northern Ireland, so it's not like you can just pop over and have a beer or whatever. But we've got to keep these conversations going, because for me, if we can find out where we've got common ground, then that's a huge starting point for defeating these people that want to divide everybody by whatever they can divide. Put us all in little groups so that we're all at each other's throats. While we're at each other's throats, they're raking in the money. They're making it big, and they're laughing, laughing at us and saying, well,
they are laughing at us. Of course, I've seen it. They are laughing at us.
And it's exactly the same in Northern Ireland as well. It's exactly the same situation we've got over here. So it's a question of how we pull all this together. And it's interesting. It's interesting because I have a lot of conversations. I've done live streams with people that used to be in Sinn Féin. I've done live streams with loyalists. I've done live streams with. Well, to be fair, I've actually never done a live stream with a real far right person, because again, they'd be like the communists. They just, if you ever do a live stream with them, they just try and flip and put their poison in, and it's not.
Of course,
It's not a fair dialogue. What they're doing is they're just coming with an agenda, trying to push their poison. It's the same with the far left; they do exactly the same. So the problem is, there's no point in really talking to those people, because
they want. You see, where we would say, you know what, that's understandable. That's a fraud thing. If we haven't know enough about that, that's wrong. We need to improve there. They're not prepared to do that. They just think, no, what we're saying is right, and there's no other way. That's why.
I mean, my positions. My fundamental beliefs have always been the same, but my positions change subtly on different things all the time, because as you get more information, you can make better decisions, and that's
like I had a basis. You see what I mean? For my political standpoint, how I grew up, socialist, kind of liberal. When I done the survey, that survey when I showed you, I realized I had a lot of personal values that were right wing, and then some people would malign me for it. Said, Shaun, you're not really one of us. Then that's what he said. But obviously we're not going to agree. We're a collective of individuals, but we're not a collective. It's not like the Borg in Star Trek. You see what I mean? It doesn't work like that. Said, but I'm prepared to work with people if we got the basis and the fundamentals are the same, like peace and prosperity for everybody, no one being left out, and not just saying it, but actually working towards it, so that I don't care where they're from. Obviously, some people say, well, you're compromising, and that's selling us. Oh no. Not in terms of my personal values and my red lines. Of course, like Theresa May's red lines. I said there's certain things I just would never do. You saw me. It's like when I done that Heart of Oaks interview for you last year, that little video. I said, look, I'm against grooming gangs. They need to be stopped. But when Katie was saying, say the Muslim ones, I said, I can't say that because I said I got Muslim friends, and obviously it would discredit them. You see what I mean? I said, but they're proud to be British. They're not like super radical, and they think the terrorism should stop and something needs to be done. So I said, you're not gonna lie. That I said, like I know people that are from Ireland, like you said, the Unions and the Republicans. I said, some of them, in terms of our personal values, we're very similar.
Yeah, yeah.
I said, so why would I think, because obviously they're not black and they're not Caribbean and they're not saying they stop slavery, you know? Yeah, I said, it's not a case of that. It's not a case of that. I said, we're not going to agree on everything. You can't get that. I said, even if I agreed with like someone exactly like me, I still probably say, wait a minute, why are you agreeing with everything I'm saying? It's a bit weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can't, and that's how you get to innovation. When you get other people that have different perspective, they see things differently, you get innovation and you can meet people from people that you won't necessarily be able to connect with.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So I mean, my issue, one of the frightening things is, Shaun, talking about the grooming gangs. I've done a lot of research into this. I'm not going to it on the stream, but there's been going at a big deep dive in a specific town. And what I found was, in that town, it wasn't just me, there's a few of us doing the research, and what we found was that it wasn't the extremists that were doing the grooming. It was like, now this is just one town, so it's like, I'm not saying this is right the way in every town in the UK, but this one specific town, I think there's about 1,000 Muslims in this town, and probably about 500 of those were men, and there was about 240 of those men had been involved in the grooming, and they were solicitors, and they were, nighttime economy, taxis, kebab shops, exclusive restaurants. And it was like all generations, all ages. That's what scared me, because like I always thought, well, it must be the jihadis that are doing all this. Like, it couldn't be. So I'm not. And again, this was Pakistani.
No, to be fair, I probably agree. Like when I saw the Rochdale ones, to be fair, when Tom showed me the Rochdale ones, I said, I noticed a lot of them. They said they were Pakistani. But I said, even that may be true. I said, if you say that to someone, like you said, Friar Wright, I said, see, that just proves what I'm saying. Yeah, it's all of them. So I said, you can't say that. I said, that's like saying, because I'm black and I've got a border to go to, you must smoke weed. I've never smoked in my life, but people said, that's a lie. I said, I haven't though. That's one of the few things when I said I'm young, I'm never gonna smoke. So yes, but they're totally shocked. I said, I support Chelsea. I said, between 10 and 15, most of my friends were white. How can that be the way you are? So, but just how it was. I never planned it like that, but just that's how it was. Exactly. So you get these things, so that they start, and they're not reasonable. Like we said, well, let's look into it, let's research and find out why. And they're not concerned with that. That just confirms their bias. Exactly. And that's why it's thing. That's why it's dangerous to do that.
Exactly. You've got. I mean, you've got to go with what evidence is put in front of you, and that's that's what I think I've always done. At the end of the day, if people don't like the conclusions I come to,
of course,
that's not my problem. I'll just say I'll say what I guess. It's like catchphrase: say what you see. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. It's like with my community, I know. Look, disproportionately, we kill each other more, even though in terms of the actual numbers overall, it's small. But in terms of percentages, it's more. I said that's something we have to accept. You can't think. You can't be telling people they must accept our judgment that we find out with our research, and then you can't accept your own. The flaws in your own community.
It's like what happened in Northern Ireland. I mean, because Northern Ireland, the killing was on such a scale at one point that it literally had to stop. Like, if we'd have all just said, oh well, it's not our fault, it's nothing to do with us, it's because of historical this, that, and the other, the violence would never have stopped. But people realized, hold on a minute, this is getting crazy. Like, I mean, there was just like, it was tit for tat. They blow up a fish shop, and the next thing, some guys would go out and machine gun a pub, and this was the sort of thing that was going on, and it was tit for tat, and it was getting more and more extreme, and it got to the stage where people just went, like, where does this end? Stop it. And I think the problem is with the gang crime, like what happened in Northern Ireland back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, there was a command structure, and basically people did in those groups, they were controlled. But the problem that I would imagine with a gang is there's not that same command structure, because there's so many different gangs, and it's like a lot more.
That's right. You see, when it's less, there's more uniform control. But you're right. When it's break off and they splinter off, there's not, and it becomes disfranchised, disorganized.
That's more dangerous. That's far more dangerous. You're almost better having it like there's just one or two big gangs.
One or two alternatives. Yeah, it's true. You do because you're trying to create something for every individual. It's not possible. It's not possible. You see what I mean? Yeah,
exactly.
one cat. It's not a snapback. One size doesn't fit all.
No.
At the same time, you can't have a tailored bespoke suit for everybody.
No, you can't. You know, and everybody's different, and everybody's an individual. Like it is. Well, Shaun, listen, we've gone way over what we were going to do. We said we were going to stick to an hour, and we're on an hour and 20 minutes there. So it's been a good old chat. Everybody that's watched, thanks for watching. And again, to me, that's the sort of dialogue we should be having, where we're not agreeing on everything, but we're having a polite and respectful dialogue, and building a friendship. Even if it's online, we're building a friendship, and we're talking about really important, meaty issues that affect, these things are going to affect everybody's lives. We can't get the race issue sorted out and get this craziness of people just looking at skin color. If we can't get that put back in the bag, we're going to have problems. If we can't get the nationalism,
we're going to have problems. We're going to have problems.
So we need to be talking about these things, and we need to be trying to come up with solutions. And I think even just talking is part of the solution. Just sitting talking about
it, because that's how you get understanding.
Exactly.
There's a few things that I've learned from you and Tom and Danny.
Yeah, likewise, Shaun.
Like, you see, to be fair, as much as I say the feminism is gone out of hand, I said, you know what? I'm getting a taste of what it's like from my community when we say, you know what, we need reparations. You have to pay for, slavery. And then I'm having the women now, because you're a man, you're a rapist or you're a sexual predator. I said, but I've never done it. I've never been convicted of any of those things. So I've never done anything in those things. So they're like, well, it doesn't matter. Yes, always, not all men. I said, I can't be responsible for historical prejudices, and when you didn't have the vote in Emily Pankhurst, in the powdered wig days. I wasn't alive then. So I can see now why people say, well, you're after reparations. I said, boy, I fully understand why people say, they're going on for something I didn't do, and they want me to feel guilty about it. That's what happened. It's true. So I've got a better, where before I could empathize, I've actually got experience now as well.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think what will happen is people will realize that this whole ideology of splitting people down into little small groups is, sooner or later, it ends up there's just one person left in the group. There's nobody. There's nobody else left to hate. You know what I mean?
But you know what? They're starting self-hatred.
Yeah, exactly. That's why exactly. Well, listen, if they can go and do self-hate, as long as they don't bother the rest of us trying to get on with life, that's all right by me, Shaun. Well, listen, let's end the broadcast there. We'll have a little chat after the broadcast end. But I'll just say, guys, if you enjoyed this video, share it. If you didn't enjoy it, share it and say that you don't like us very much. That's okay as well. It's a free country still a little bit, and I'm going to keep talking to people, and if people don't like what I say and they don't like who I talk to, I don't really care, because I'm just going to keep talking, and that's how we're gonna solve some of these problems, by actually having proper dialogue. And Shaun, brilliant, man, absolutely brilliant. Let's do it again. We'll not leave it 9 months before we do it again. Next time, Shaun, we'll do it before that, mate. Okay, guys, thanks very much. See you soon. Bye bye.